Okay, so some of you might know that Apple is working on a pair of AR glasses. Now, in case you don't know what AR glasses are, well, I'll explain everything you need to know in this video, alongside why these glasses have the potential of revolutionizing the tech industry entirely, just like the iPhone did back in 2007. And, as you can probably tell, I'm extremely excited about the Apple glasses, and you will most certainly be as well by the end of this video. So grab some popcorn, and here's the real feature of the tech industry. Oh, and in case you missed it, we're actually doing two giveaways. One of them is of a pair of the AirPods Pros, and then the second one is of the Google Pixel 4. So yeah, full details in the description box down below on how to enter. And yeah, good luck to everyone. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what AR is, AR means augmented reality. And unlike VR, which is virtual reality, where you put, that giant headset on and you're instantly transported into a fully virtual world, well, AR keeps you in the real world, but then it adds certain virtual elements to it. And we've recently started seeing AR being used in smartphones. Like Apple released ARKit, which is pretty much an API, or in English, a simple tool that allows developers to easily make AR apps that would automatically take advantage of all the sensors that you have in an iPhone, such as the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the dual, and now the triple lens camera module, and so on. So we started seeing apps such as the IKEA Place app that allows you to place furniture from their store inside your real-world view. And it works incredibly well. The tracking is spot on, it never lost tracking, and the furniture even had real-time shadows, as well as the ability to get very, very close to them and then see all the details, so I was extremely impressed with what this app could do. I recently moved into a new apartment, which is still empty, so I'll be using this app to buy some furniture in the upcoming weeks, and yeah, it's been great so far. And Apple has put so many resources into ARKit, where we got to a point now where we have real-time shadows on objects, real-time reflections from the lights in the real world, which will get reflected onto the virtual objects, which is just nuts. And what's probably even more nuts and crazier is that with ARKit 3, virtual objects can actually detect the presence of a real person and circle around it, for example, instead of, just overlaying on top of that person. And while I do see VR as more suitable for games and entertainment in general, I see AR as more suited towards productivity. And this is why having this AR experience all the time without you having to take, your smartphone with you, this would be a game changer. And this is where Apple's upcoming AR headset will come into play. Now, the questions that you all probably have regarding this headset are, number one, how will it work? Number two, how would it look? And then number three, how much will this thing cost? So let's start off with number one. How will it work? Well, you see, there's quite a few ways that you can build such a headset. So usually VR headsets are big, bulky, and they connect to your PC via an actual cable. There are a few examples, such as the Oculus Quest, which are completely wireless, and this is where the future of VR is heading towards. And when it comes to Apple, well, their AR headsets will indeed be fully wireless as well. There's been quite a number of patents that Apple has applied for, all showing a very thin and light device that looks pretty much like a regular pair of glasses. And CNET even released a pretty big report back in 2018 with some details that they got from inside sources on how Apple's VR glasses would work like. The project is apparently called T288 internally, and even back in 2018, it was still aimed at a 2020 release, just like the more recent reports have all pointed towards. And CNET did detail that Apple is actually planning on making this a fully wireless device. So instead of Apple building the processor and everything inside a headset, this will actually be built into a different device, which would then render the entire scene and then transmit the video stream to the glasses. So the glasses will essentially act just as a display. But a different device will actually render the entire scene. Otherwise, the glasses will have to be very, very thick in order to accommodate a larger battery that would be required for driving such a powerful processor. And yes, in case you're wondering, the glasses will also be housing multiple cameras for tracking the environment, very similar to the Oculus Quest cameras, it's just that the processing would be done outside of the headset. Now, CNET did mention that Apple will have a separate box that will be processing all the data from the headset. However, Ming-Chi Kuo, who's been pretty much the most reliable source when it comes to Apple leaks, reported earlier this year that that separate processing box would actually be the iPhone, and that the AR glasses would be sold as an iPhone accessory. So this would be very similar to the Apple Watch or the AirPods, essentially a new product category that would go hand in hand with the iPhone. And then another report from Bloomberg that we got back in 2017 pointed towards the exact same thing. Apple working on an AR headset that would release in 2020 and that would eventually even end up replacing the iPhone. So there you go, the future of the iPhone will not be an iPhone. Now, in the first few years, it will need the iPhone for, the processing power, but once the chips get even more power efficient and we hopefully get the new battery technology as well, then an iPhone would not be required at all anymore. Okay, so now what will you be able to do with the Apple glasses? Well, you would essentially be able to see everything from your iPhone directly in front of your eyes. So things such as your messages, your Instagram feed, your emails, all of that would be viewable all the time right in front of your eyes. And no, it would not take your entire field of view, but instead a small window overlay would display all of that data, and it's very likely that you would also be able to reposition that window, resize it, and so on. Now, the AR glasses themselves will indeed have Siri integration, so most of the interaction will be done by voice and by some touch panels which are said to be embedded into the frame itself. Okay, so that's all pretty cool, but what else will it be able to do? Well, the use cases that I would use personally and that I would love to see would be integration with maps, so that you can see the arrows in real time and the directions on the street itself right in front of your eyes. That would be awesome. For example, Google Maps even got a recent update with AR integration, so just go update the app and then just go to navigation and walking directions, and you would indeed be getting real-time directions in the real world with arrows and directions to where exactly you should be going to. This is just on smartphones at the moment, but imagine having this on a pair of AR glasses. That would be incredible. And of course, that for me at least, the most useful case scenario would be having loads of displays anywhere I am. Like, imagine having 3 big curved monitors surrounding you, or even, hey, why not, a full room of displays, or just a gigantic display right in front of your eyes, or just floating above your desk, your work desk. That would be incredible and something that you wouldn't be able to normally have. Now, speaking of displays, one of the current issues with AR and VR headsets today is the pixel density of their displays. Essentially, the lower the resolution the display is, the lower the pixel density will be, and the more pixels you will actually see when you put a headset on, which will create this very blurry and grainy effect. The Oculus Quest, for example, which is by far the best VR headset that I have used, has a resolution of 1440 by 1600 for each eye, which is pretty incredible. This is, by the way, on par with the HTC Vive Pro. But you see, even with such a high resolution display, I can still easily see the pixels, and the image quality just isn't realistic at all. So we're still years ahead of extremely high resolution displays on the AR and VR headsets. However, CNET did mention in the report that Apple would actually be using 8K displays in their headset. Yes, VR headsets today, they have a close to 2K resolution per each eye, and Apple wants to use an 8K display for each eye, which is absolutely insane. Like, with a resolution like that per each eye, you should be able to see a perfectly clear image without any pixelation at all, or at least pixelation that's barely even noticeable. But okay, let's be honest here. Can the iPhone drive 2 8K displays while also calculating everything required for the AR tracking in real time? Well, considering that the Apple A10X processor that's inside the Apple TV 4K can actually handle full 4K output and even 4K games, albeit mobile ones, and the Apple A13 processor that's inside the iPhone 11 Pros and the iPhone 11, that one is pretty much twice more powerful than that, and the Apple A14 chip, which will be coming out next year, and it will be the first processor to be based on a 5nm process, that one should smoke the Apple A13 chip. So yeah, it's looking pretty likely that the Apple A14 will indeed be able to push dual 8K output for the Apple AR glasses. Okay, so this was a fairly long section, since how it would work is the most interesting and also the most important parts of any headset. But now let's see, how would it actually look like? Well, considering Apple's patents and the fact that the glasses themselves will only be streaming the data from the iPhone itself, rather than calculating that data themselves, they should look very similar to traditional glasses. Apple does already have 2 wearable devices, the Apple Watch and the AirPods, and they both look good, as in they have an elegant look. However, we can all agree that they do have a weird/unique look to them as well. Like, for example, the Apple Watch is a rectangular smartwatch, and you can immediately tell when someone's wearing an Apple Watch versus a regular watch or any other smartwatch, for example. And the same thing goes for the AirPods. They have this very weird and distinct look to them, so yeah, I do believe that the Apple glasses would have a similar look. They would still look like glasses, but they will have Apple's unique take on them with a more unusual design. This is our concept, by the way, and we actually made it in a realistic way, with a fairly thick frame that houses the battery and the chip for capturing 3D data and then sending it back to the iPhone. So we have 3 cameras on the front and then 2 more on each side for spatial awareness. We have the wireless charging coils because, let's be real, Apple will very likely use a similar charging system as to what they already use in the Apple Watch and the AirPods. So yeah, wireless charging. The speakers would be bone conducting speakers, so the grills that you see on our concept are just there for the design and for the airflow. Now, this is of course our take on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Apple does something similar. Like I said, a pair of glasses that looks a bit more unique than the rest, just like they did with the AirPods and the Apple Watch. Oh, and speaking of the AirPods, don't forget about the AirPods Pro giveaway. Full details about this in the description. And finally, number 3, how much will it cost? Well, this is actually a bit of a tricky one because you see, in order for Apple to make the best possible AR glasses, they would need to charge loads, as in, actual loads. Like, this is a truly futuristic device that won't be cheap to manufacture by any means. But then at the same time, Apple simply cannot charge $3,000 for this, since, like, who would really buy this in that case? Now, the rumor price is around $1,000 to $1,500 at this point. Which I still think is very expensive, and I don't see many people buying this considering that this is not a phone, but instead an accessory that you also need an iPhone for. Like, take a look at the ceramic edition of the Apple Watch, like how well did that sell? Not that well. What I do suggest Apple to do is make the best Apple glasses that you can, even if it costs $3,000 per unit to manufacture that, and then price it very low. At $300 or so, it's around the same price as the Apple Watch costs, because in that case they will sell loads. They will be sold at a loss. However, Apple can make their money back through software purchases, so that's, for example, what I would do. But whatever price Apple decides to sell them for, we know that they are definitely happening. We've seen multiple reports from Ming Chi Kuo, DigiTimes, Bloomberg, and even actual code found in iOS 13 that points towards Apple actively working on the AR glasses. And apparently, Apple even applied for a patent recently that allows you to adjust the opacity of the display so that the AR objects are more and less visible in the real world. And something that I find to be even more interesting is a recent report coming from DigiTimes that claims that Apple has partnered with Valve to develop the AR headset. Now, this is really interesting because you see Valve just released their own headset, the Valve Index, recently, which is pretty much the highest end VR headset that you can buy. And the HTC Vive and the Vive Pro have both been made in partnership with Valve. So Valve has been in the VR industry for quite a few years now and has definitely been one of the pioneers of VR. And Apple partnering with Valve is just some amazing news. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about the Apple AR glasses. Would you actually use one, and what would you use it for? Like I said, in my case, it would be having loads of monitors. That would be my main use case scenario. I would love to do that. Aside from that, just social media and having my emails and messages with me all the time, easily accessible. But once again, let me know in the comments what what will you be using it for? Once again, don't forget about the AirPods Pro giveaway and the Pixel 4 giveaway. Full details in the description box down below. But this has been pretty much it. So thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Enough Tech, signing out. Cheers.